Hello, my beautiful people. Today is July 16th, 2021. I am your host, Lady J. Today we're going to do something a little different. I am flying solo. Last week, Thursday, July 8th, I had a special guest on board, Miss Charlene. At the end of our episode, she mentioned my book, S.T.U.F.F, an autobiography by J.D. Lee Lewis. Charlene and I didn't get a chance to go into depth about my book. However, today being that I am flying solo, I thought I'd do something that I had been planning on doing last year, and I was sidetracked. Things like that happen. Today I have a little time, and I'd like to read a few episodes or a few excerpts from my book, S.T.U.F.F. So let's get started by saying that here I would like to read a remark from Ayn Rand. She was the author of Atlas Shrugged. Miss Rand says, "Do not let your fire go out, sparked by irreplaceable spark in the hopeless swamps of the not quite, the not yet, and the not at all. Do not let the hero in your soul perish in lonely frustration. For the life you deserve and have never been able to reach, the world you desire can be won. It exists. It is real. It is possible. It is yours." Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Let's keep moving on. What I'm going to do here is read the opening. The opening of S.T.U.F.F. says, "I have done many things under the sun, from getting high to getting by." Consider the quote from Ayn Rand's book, Atlas Shrugged. Do not let your fire go out. My fire allows me to reach goals, to reach my goals. I have always gotten what I wanted. Eventually, I made a way out of no way. It is through the blessing of Yeshua, Son of the Most High, that my accomplishments are even possible. Throughout this book, I shall acknowledge Yahweh, Elohim, and Yeshua. Yahweh's forever presence is a gift and the source of all things. Know this, there is a fire in all of us. Sometimes it takes longer for it to ignite. We all catch fire. Eventually, we all get what we want. There are things in this world we need, for example, water, food, and shelter. It could be tap water or expensive bottled water, fast food, a home-cooked meal, or food from a garbage pail. We could live the life of the rich and famous or in a cardboard box. Everything we want is here. It exists, good or bad, right or wrong. It is ours. This book is about how I do things, why I did them, and the path I took to obtain my work. The title S.T.U.F.F, for example, really is about my sassy, tenacious, unfortunate, funny, factual life. My story also includes my understanding of the Creator as I know Him and how He actually exists, not only in me, but in all of us. My book captures the things I saw, did, and thought about. This is not a traditional book in the conventional format. Think of it as the essence of me, the ME, or mysterious element. I shall do my best to be honest. It is not my intentions to offend anyone by being forthright. However, I do speak of individuals, sometimes negatively, who know me and or people I've met. Finally, I voice my views regarding the world and how I see everything from the time I can remember. Some things should not be said or spoken. Those things must be kept in the mind chamber. I hope you will enjoy the journey. If I have enriched at least one of your lives at the end of this book, then my work was not in vain. Each one teach one is what I aim to do. So, I'm going to start with episode 1, titled Hello and Welcome to My World. Whatever you think you know about me, allow me to set you straight. I am here to put it all on the line. They said, she said, we said, he said, does not pay my bills or comfort me when I am blue. They don't work for me or carry my burden. What they can do is pray for me, then pray for themselves. Forgive me when I hurt your feelings or cause strife that leads to physical pain. Then forgive yourself. The reason I ask you to pray for me is apparent. But why do I say forgive yourself? If you have been carrying malice, envy, or jealousy toward others, if you are simmering in rage, covetousness, lust, or scorn toward me or others, then you must pray for yourself. In my humble opinion, when someone harbors malice toward another, that someone is out of alignment. Only love and forgiveness from Yahweh through the Son Yeshua, through His Son Yeshua, the Messiah, shall lift their burdens. When we are honest and sincere in our hearts, Yahweh shall forgive and Yeshua shall comfort us all. Forgive yourself. Remember, half the people you hate don't know, the other half don't care. You are only hurting yourself. We should learn to forgive. Whether you accept or reject it, we will all be held accountable for things said and done. The author Maya Angelou said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Back to my point. When people submerge themselves in the abyss of bitterness, envy, revenge, or guilt, they knowingly or unknowingly become a pawn for Lucifer, the serpent, or the devil. I overheard someone say, we give in to the easy wrong rather than the hard right. How true. Well, now, my friend, it is time to begin my story, the good, the bad, and the indifferent. Find a nice, comfy place to kick back and travel through the years of my life. This ride may be bumpy at one moment and smooth the next. The road travel may be a long way or the wrong way. I intend to show you how Yahweh guides me most of the time. However, Lucifer in me sometimes takes the wrong exit. I have done many things under the sun, from getting high to getting by. This journey is not an easy one. Still, my accomplishments outweigh my inertia. Completing a task has often yielded results. For years, my thoughts were jotted down. in journals, on pieces of paper. On April 10th, 2014, I sat down and began putting all that stuff together. While on this journey, I reached out to an array of people for help and feedback. Some of the people I reached out to were successful writers themselves. What I found were many of the well-known author representatives would only respond if I were requesting a guest appearance by that author. It bothered me when my request fell on deaf ears. Since giving up was not an option, I persevered. On June 9, 2014, while listening to Maggie Linton, talk show host, co-producer of Sirius Radio, an opportunity presented itself to call into Maggie Linton's show and speak to her guest. This particular morning, Miss Linton's guest was Miss Laura Brown. She gave me a renewed attitude. The subject for that short segment was literature. I spoke to Miss Brown and told her about my book. She said, "Go for it." And I did. Allow me to say once more, hello and welcome to my world. I'm a little unsure where to start, so let me start here. Let me start by saying there are 3 Lewis girls. I am the firstborn. Sometime after my birth, my mother had a stillborn son, that is. His name was Alfred Bernard Lewis. I was born on February 8, 1958, at Chatty Hospital in Shreveport, Louisiana. My mother is Miss Jessie Mae Aubrey Lewis. My daddy, pronounced as it is spelled, is Mr. James Elbert Lewis. For much of my life, I believe the hospital where I was born was named Chatty Hospital. While in my 30s, I realized my mother was mispronouncing Chatty. I went to the internet and found Charity Hospital, not Chatty. Funny, right? My conception took place in Spring Hill, Louisiana, 52 miles from Shreveport. My dad, James Elbert Lewis, told me our family was one of the first Negroes to live in the area. After I left the hospital, Jesse and I went to live with my dad at 405 Patterson Street in Spring Hill, Louisiana, in a little shack. My dad told me Patterson Street is named after our family surname. His younger sister, my Auntie M, confirmed this. My paternal grandmother, Miss D. Patterson, married Jimmy Lee Lewis. My mother told me that J.P., my great-granddad, or Jimmy, my granddad, came to where I was staying as a child and took me for car rides occasionally. The problem is I do not remember which of them came to get me from time to time. Anyway, Auntie M told me great-granddad J.P. Patterson was a Mason in Spring Hill, Louisiana. I found out from various sources there are 3 degrees or levels of membership: entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. J.P. Patterson was a master mason. Riri is my maternal grandmother. Riri was a Eastern Star. Grandmother D. Patterson was an Eastern Star, and Jessie Mae Lewis may have been an Eastern Star too. I remember my mother telling me things about the OES. What she told me were good things she knew, like how one could flash a sign or speak a secret word and get help or assistance. What I found out in 2016 will shake your world. My great-granddad, J.P., was also the owner, operator of a store on Patterson Street. There is a parallel here. 40 years after my birth, I moved to a town called Patterson, California. Back to my beginning. After seeing me for the first time, my dad said I filled him with joy. He added it was short-lived. The reason being, Daddy committed a petty crime and was incarcerated for 6 months. Now, I could be wrong about this, but not far from the 405 Patterson Street, our little shack, is a Piggly Wiggly store. It is located approximately 10 minutes walking distance from the Patterson property. The store may have been the same place where my dad got in trouble. On the other hand, it could have been another Piggly Wiggly store in another town. Anyway, after his arrest, my mother and I left Spring Hill for Cullen, Louisiana. The two of us went to live with Riri. Riri, Georgia Marie Aubrey, my grandmother, rented a home from a Negro family. The homeowner's name was Henry Roan. Mr. Roan had two sons. Mr. Roan had 2 sons at the time, the oldest, Henry, and the other, Isaac. I mention this because my auntie Charlene, to this day, still corresponds with one of the brothers. The Roans owned a furniture store, clothing store, and rooming houses. They also built homes. Truthfully speaking, there were many Negroes that owned businesses during the late 50s and 60s in Cullen. The concept that Negroes were indolent and dependent was a means of disenfranchising our people. I am convinced that this belief is fixed in the minds of some Caucasians and others. My thoughts are supported by an article I came across regarding a person named Willie Lynch. In my humble opinion, many people still hold to this concept as truth. Please read The Making of a Slave at this site, http://www.talking-drum.com/wil.html. I do need to add that that link may not be there. You may find other links regarding Willie Lynch on Google. Back to my story. Jesse and I remained in Cullen for approximately 2 years. At some point, my mother got pregnant with my brother. The truth is, I am not sure if she got pregnant by my daddy or someone else. She told me later in my life that the baby stopped moving, and sometime later she birthed him. My mother was not allowed to see him, but I was there when the black hearse drove up. For many years, whenever I saw a black hearse, my mother told me that I would chase after it, saying, my baby brother's is in there. You know what? I am 56 years old. I was 56 years old when I started the book, but not now. You know what? I am 56 now, and to this day, when I see a hearse, if it affects me. Now, taking you from what I was told to what I remember is where my life really begins. One of my first memories is being out on a dirt road in the front of someone's house, quite possibly my grandmother, Riri. Adults were sitting on a porch, and one of them asked, "Well, who is that black nappy-headed one right there?" Riri said, "Oh, that's Jessie Mae's daughter." I recall running away and hiding in a cornfield, probably because my feelings were hurt. This experience and many others would act as the catalyst for my tenacity. There is another incident I recall while living with Riri and Cullen. My older cousin, Jan, pushed my head against a window and cracked my forehead. Her reason for doing so was just because I existed. This is most of what I remember during my time in Shreveport, Louisiana, Cullen, Louisiana. Many things affected our lives while living with Riri, as previously stated. Situations that are far removed from me at this moment. Meanwhile, after my daddy was released from his 6-month incarceration, he crossed paths with friends of his who were driving to California. He decided to leave the South. He paid $25 and rode with them to California. After arriving in California, he located his older sister, Selma Lee, who lived on Wakefield Avenue in Oakland. Anyway, my mother told me that one day she contacted my dad and told him she was going to get married, and if he did not send for the two of us, he would never see us again. The threat worked, and he got a job while living with his sister in Oakland. He found a house on the corner of 8th Ave and East 19th Street. When I was around 2 years old, Jesse and I left Louisiana by train. During that time, Negroes had to sit at the back of the train. Somehow, I broke a glass, and that incident created a stir. I vaguely remember the event. By the time we arrived in 1960, my daddy was working at the Rainbow Drive, a fast food joint much like today's Sonic. My dad had gotten a dog before we arrived. I recall going beneath the house to see him a couple of times. It's funny, my dad always had a dog around, but I never liked animals. One day someone bought me a chatty Cathy doll. She could talk and seemed very tall and frightening to me in a strange way. During our first year after arriving in Oakland, my mother met a Caucasian woman named Mary Jane. This woman was a Jehovah's Witness. According to my mother, Mary Jane befriended her and began teaching her about Jehovah. Our house was within walking distance of the Kingdom Hall that Mary Jane attended. Around this period of my life, a few things changed. For example, I stopped calling my mother by her first name. Mary Jane told Jessie she should not allow me to do that. Supposedly, this is when I began calling her Mama. As months passed, Jessie and I became more involved with the Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall. As I grew physically, my spiritual mind grew also. This teaching became my spiritual foundation. In the months that followed our arrival, we became a part of the congregation. We went door to door and stood on street corners selling the Awake and the Watchtower, the magazines that members gave or sold publicly. I wonder if this experience aided me later in life when I became an entrepreneur. As a kid, it was fun selling magazines and talking to people. There is an incident I recall while living at 1847 8th Avenue. My parents drove to Lake Merritt Bakery. They left me alone in Bessie. Bessie was our white Ford. While they were inside the grocery store, somehow I managed to release the parking brake. The car began to roll away. Suddenly, a man hopped in and brought Bessie to a halt. Fortunately, no one was hurt. What happened after my mom and dad got back to the car is still a mystery. As an adult, I asked my dad about this incident. He said he did not remember. You know, there are missing pieces in my adolescent years that my close family members do not recall. I find this strange. I feel like they are hiding information from me. Who knows? In any case, after living on 8th Ave for a while, the three of us relocated. If I remember correctly, we moved to 1460 13th Street. Not far from this house was our new Kingdom Hall, located at 1300 Adeline Street. The Kingdom Hall is still there as far as I know. After moving into our house, we rejoined the witnesses. My mom and dad were very sharp dressers. My mother always wore two-piece double knit suits, and my dad wore his white shirt, suspenders, and dress slacks. Jessie often had me in freshly ironed dresses. One morning, the three of us attended the Kingdom Hall on Adeline. I was sitting with my dad when the speaker asked the audience a question. Anyone could respond. That someone happened to be me. After I answered his question, everyone started laughing. I remember feeling frightened by their laughter. Were they laughing at me? Laughing because a little kid like me responded to the question correctly? Whatever the case, I started crying. My dad carried me to the restroom, wiped my tears, and consoled me for a moment. This experience caused me to fear to speak in front of a group for quite a long time. To be honest, public speaking is a challenge for me. However, facing the fear by just letting go releases the butterflies, and I find my voice. Nevertheless, the Kingdom Hall was fun. Bible studies, assemblies, and our occasional home visit with members from time to time made it enjoyable for me. Our new place on 13th Street had a paper shack underneath it. While living there, my mother got pregnant again, and on May 18, 1961, my middle sister was born. I'm going to pause here. So, you've been listening to an excerpt from my book, S.T.U.F.F. You can find S.T.U.F.F. at jdlewis.com. That's JADIELEWIS.com. You can also purchase S.T.U.F.F., an autobiography by J.D. Lee Lewis, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can also download a ebook at https://www.outskirtpress.com/JD Lewis Stuff. I will end this show by telling you that I hope you enjoyed the excerpt from my book S.T.U.F.F. I hope it has made you a little curious as to what else there is to share with you. I will be reading from the book periodically, different excerpts from different chapters. Hopefully the next one will prompt you to go to my website and pick up a copy. Today has come to an end, my friend. I thank you for joining me. I welcome you back for next week, where I should have a live guest and ride with us. I'm sure you will enjoy the journey. You have been listening to Lady J with another solo episode at Soulful Conversations. I would like to ask that you stay tuned and stay strong. This is Lady J, signing off. Ciao.